Happy holidays, everybody, and Tony here with a look back on I'm Dreamin' of a White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which was released to video on September 12, 1995, and aired on Fox Kids on November 23 of that same year. This was directed by Douglas Sloan, and it was written by Ron Milbauer and Terry Hughes. I loved Mighty Morphin Power Rangers ever since I was a little kid. I enjoyed all of the kick butt action that occurred when the main five to the main six transformed into their battle armor attire, and I definitely loved the fight choreography that occurred, thus showing just how cool, badass, and amazing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was when I was a child watching this. Although nowadays as an adult, I can't help but think that there were some moments that were quite corny, and there were definitely some elements of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that didn't really hold up to today's standards. Nevertheless, the fun that I was able to acquire from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was definitely a huge guarantee for smiles and thrills that kept me on the edge of my seat every single time. Even with subsequent incarnations such as Wild Force Power Rangers Space Patrol, Power Rangers Ninja Storm, and Power Rangers Jungle Fury, I was nevertheless thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. However, when all is said and done, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers continues to have a very special place in my heart, despite the campiness and despite the corniness that comes along the way. It's not just the likes of the main five, eventually the main six, consisting of the likes of Kimberly, Trini, then eventually Aisha, Adam, Billy, Tommy, and the original Red Ranger played by Austin St. John, but also Bulk's and Skull's humorous oafishness as a comedic duo, and let's not forget about the iconic villains, including Rita Repulsa and her hamminess, and Lord Zed with his want to take over the world. Even though I did not know about the original source material it was based on, specifically Super Sentai shows such as Five-Man, Jetman, Bioman, and even where Power Rangers was directly inspired by Jurenja, Power Rangers will continue to have a special place in my heart, and I will definitely love both the original Japanese Super Sentai shows and shows like Power Rangers until the day I die. Although I thoroughly enjoyed the Power Rangers ever since I was a little kid, I did not catch the Christmas episode until much later this year. I was initially expecting some action and some thrills to be combined with that good holiday cheer. However, as I watched it in its entirety, it was okay, but it was not anything to root for, let alone something that I could go back to over and over again. While there were some moments that I did enjoy, there were times I was disappointed with the overall package, but that did not make it a bad episode. It was just meh in terms of its overall package. At least there were some highlights, like the prologue before the opening credits being recited like a Christmas poem, and even Tommy's sweet moments with Kimberly. I also enjoyed seeing Aisha conducting the children's pageant with Kimberly on the guitar as part of their program for the youth center during the holidays. And speaking of some of the kids, I did enjoy some of the bonding moments that the Rangers had with Becky, a girl who is very lonely and seemed very blue throughout the holidays. And it's revealed that all she wants for Christmas is her dad to be with her. And of course, it's also fun seeing Bulk and Skull being the absolutely adorkable numbnuts that they are, although they are police officer trainees. But if you ask me, where this episode dips for me are the villain's plans. Lord Zed wants to create toys that will manipulate children into being naughty. And who else than to hire somebody for that job than Rita Repulsa's cousin, Rito Revolto. Now, Rito Revolto is definitely a fun guest villain in of himself. He's just as hammy as the other villains, and he also has that really flamboyant and hammy presence that made him thoroughly entertaining as a member of the Power Rangers Rogues Gallery. However, why go through the trouble of having Santa being a middleman to implement these toys? To me, it just seems like Santa is thrown in there just as a plot element in order for the supposed evil plan to function. If I were to have rewritten this episode, I would have loved to have Lord Zed and his cronies poison the minds of the children to attack the Power Rangers, only for the Power Rangers to realize that it is what Lord Zed is doing to these children that is truly evil. But the whole Santa and the elves element for me just seems to state to the audience that this is a Christmas episode and you can't have a Christmas episode without Santa and the elves. And another thing is the whole baloney explanation of why the Rangers cannot morph in the North Pole. And as Zardon said, they cannot morph from the North Pole because of its unique polarity and holiday magic combination. As I say before, that was a whole bunch of baloney. Because I would have loved to see Tommy, Rocky, Adam, Billy, Kimberly, and Aisha suit up, morph up, and beat up the bad guys. What did we get as a final battle? We get the main six pelting snowballs at Rito Revolto, and the elves helping out with a Home Alone style trap. Santa's freed and the villains are captured. At least they managed to celebrate some holiday cheer. And of course, Becky is reunited with her dad, the children sing Silent Night, and the main six, as well as the children, and the proctor of the youth center greeted us, the viewer, a Merry Christmas. As a Power Rangers episode, it was a major letdown. As a Christmas episode, it was okay. Reason why it was a major letdown was because it had a lot of potential to be a much stronger Power Rangers episode. Let me give you an example of a superhero show that had a Christmas episode that combined some holiday spirit and a lot of stakes that were being taken. I'm talking about Have Yourself a Morlock Little Xmas from X-Men the Animated Series. To me, this episode worked because of the life and death situation one of the Morlocks found themselves in, as well as the transfusion that had to be implemented via Logan, and there was also a lot of human drama to be found, such as Storm's regret for not protecting her people, as well as what Logan, aka Wolverine, had to endure with the guilt that he was facing for not saving someone's life. How I see it, Have Yourself a Morlock Little Xmas worked because of the balance that it managed to master. Whereas with I'm Dreaming of a White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, this episode kind of faltered because the stakes were not high enough. The tension was quite fluffy, and although it had some moments that were quite good and entertaining, let alone very hilarious, that still did not wipe away the disappointment that I kind of felt from this episode. Nevertheless, I still had fun, but I would have loved for it to be a lot better. The baloney explanation as to why the Rangers couldn't morph, and the final battle that lacked that signature kick butt nature kind of dropped this episode for me. And there was also some potential that could have made it a better episode. Like, what about have Becky be one of the victims of Lord Zed's schemes and make her a sort of vessel along with the other children of the youth center to attack the Power Rangers while being manipulated by Lord Zed and his Goonies to make them realize that they're not the real enemy, but Lord Zed has poisoned their minds, and only then that they'll start realizing that, as corny as it seems, once they believe with their hearts and their minds, they start realizing who the real evil person is, and it's definitely not the Rangers, but Lord Zed himself and his Goonies. That would have been a much more satisfying final battle, especially to see our main Rangers suit up and do battle with evil. Now you might think I hate this episode. I don't really hate it. I enjoy it because it has some humor, and I still also have to give some credit to the main actors, especially Bob Pappenbrook as Rito Revolto, all thanks to that booming baritone voice of his. But I cannot overlook the disappointment I had with this particular Power Rangers Christmas episode. It's not overly bad, it's just okay. For those of you who are hardcore Power Rangers fans, regardless of quality, you might enjoy this. For those of you who expected action, you might be let down. But at least you'll have some laughs along the way, so I can't really fault Have Yourself a White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for having some few nuggets of brilliance to be found. And for those of you who watched Have Yourself a White Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, what'd you think of it? Did you enjoy this episode in spite of its faults? Was there a moment that you thought was really good? Was the overall execution the way you would have wanted it? Or did you feel like it was an utter disappointment? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's it for my look back on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Christmas episode, I'm Dreaming of a White Ranger. Tune in later for my tribute to the Eat the Cat Christmas special. So until then, happy holidays, everybody!